why did I choose hemp insulation in this project, right? So when I got on this project, it had a substandard WRB. That's a weather resistant barrier in building science lingo. And so what I mean by that is I had some old stucco. I really wanted to use it. It was really part of the essence of the home, part of the character of this 100-year-old home. Really cool stucco. If I was going to eliminate the stucco in these old floors, I might as well knock this house down, right? So I didn't want to do that. And so I had to think through a really good strategy. And what we ended up with was we had old felt paper. Felt paper does have a lifespan, right? So it had passed its lifespan. You could walk up and touch it and it would literally flake off. So we just consciously removed it and we put back an inexpensive liquid applied membrane. This is just Red Guard like we use in some tile installs, and slathered that on the back side of the stucco. Anywhere where we couldn't get to the felt paper inside, we just left it there, right? We just knifed it out, left it there. So we do have some sort of weather resistant barrier back behind all this stucco. That said, it's a little bit on the imperfect side because this is a remodel. So we had to throw a lot of the new construction rules out the window and we had to say, hey, how are we going to attack this 100-year-old plus home here in Austin, Texas? So that's a little background on it. And because of that, I wanted an insulation ideally that was not going to come in physical contact with the backside of my stucco. That was the mindset I was going for. So I thought about rock wool, I thought about some other insulations. Spray foam came up, right? I'm not really a big fan of spray foam typically. And the reason why I would not use spray foam in an install like this is if this wall does have some sort of slight leak and you use the spray foam, you kind of have a nightmare on your hands because you're in a situation where now you get the call, you've got to go back and take care of this, find the leak and fix the problem. And when you have that spray foam back there, good luck finding that leak. Pretty much the whole wall is toast and you start ripping out everything and it's a big nightmare. In this instance, if we were to get a leak, you have gravity working with you, you don't have this big sponge effect, and you actually have an air gap where you have this 3/4 inch horizontal member that is actually part of the stucco buildup. So not only do we have our insulation here, which is not coming in physical contact with the back of our stucco, but you also have air, right? And what does air do? Air also has a thermal resistance quality, right? So it actually adds to the R value of our wall. So it was a big victory on all ends. All right, so I wanted to give you a little background on why you may not have heard much about hemp insulation in the past. The reason for that is legalities, right? So way back in the 1930s, right after alcohol prohibition, there was a movement to prohibit the growth of cannabis and of hemp, right? And so hemp, in essence, is the inert form of cannabis or the non-psychoactive form of cannabis. It's just the byproduct of the cannabis sativa plant. And it doesn't have any THC. It's not going to get you high. Like there's not even a joke to be had. There's no smoke in this. There's none of that, right? So all it is it is a nice agricultural product that can be used in industry for a myriad of purposes. And the reason that you have not heard about it again in the building industry is until very recently, it was still illegal. We were still going back to the 1930s and the old laws and an old outdated thought process. And it was just straight up illegal to produce hemp in many parts of the United States. So you always had to import it or something like that. So that's changed in the last year. It's become legal actually to grow hemp in the state of Texas. So the big concept that you can have with the use of all these hemp materials is that you can actually have this kind of like a farm to table mindset, but in this case it's farm to home. So you literally can have a big old hemp farm, you know, nearby here. There actually are some. And then you cut down all that hemp, you process it, and there's very little movement. It stays very regional, and now you've got this wonderful product that didn't have to come from far. Hopefully it put some money in some people's pockets nearby, and you've got it to use in these homes. So that's a little background on just why you probably haven't heard about hemp, but I just want y'all to know it's coming. It's coming. You're gonna hear a lot about it, and I think it's gonna be a very big deal in the building industry, right? So why would I choose it on a project? There's many other good options of insulation. There's a lot of good options of natural insulation. You've got like the sheep wool insulation, you've got rock wool, you've got cellulose, you've got denim. There's lots of cool insulations out there, right? And different people use them for different reasons. A lot of them work really well. My selection here came with a lot of intention. And what I was looking for, as I mentioned, was a good insulation that would team well with my wall system that I have right now. But in general, I think this is a wonderful product. I will probably use this moving forward on just about every home, is at least my game plan. I'm hoping that the products improve over time too. So this is a, first few iterations of this product. This is currently being made in Canada. Hempitecture, a great gentleman named Matty Mead is really guiding Hempitecture. He's done some really cool TED Talks on hemp. And he's putting together a group right now so that they can start producing this here in the United States. And for me, I would love it to be as regional as possible. So the big benefit of hemp to me from a sustainability standpoint is the embodied energy usage, right? So when you use a product like a rock wool, which is a very incredible product, you've got the volcano slag. If you've ever been to Hawaii or anything like that, you've seen all these infinite lava rocks, right, all over everywhere. And when you try to take and process that, there's an incredible amount of energy used. It creates a very durable, bomb-proof product. It's a wonderful, excellent product, and I would, be happy to use it in a project. I've used it in many projects. But here, you got a very similar, comparable material, in my opinion. The embodied energy to produce this is just so much less, right? So it's just a lot easier to process it. You're not having to turn lava into this bad insulation. You're literally taking hemp hurd or just fibers from the hemp plant and you're processing it. And so there's a lot less energy usage. I love that. From a health standpoint, this is not scratchy, it's not itchy, it's not going to do anything like that. My child was handling this. That's one of the other really brilliant ideas with the relationship to hemp, is it's really nice to work with. So you would want to wear a mask when you're cutting it up and all that sort of thing, because you don't want to get a bunch of dust and debris in your nostrils and all that stuff, right? But outside of that, from the perspective of working with it, of not having any itchiness in relation to like a fiberglass or even rock wool, it's just really nice from that perspective, being that it's not going to be uncomfortable to work with, right? So you've got that. Then the other thing is how quickly hemp grows. So hemp actually grows more quickly than bamboo. It's got a very hollow stalk, and it can grow multiple feet overnight in the right settings. So it's extremely renewable. And so what does that mean? Well, that means it's also going to sequester a lot of carbon. And however you feel about carbon in the state of the world, whatever your opinions are, plants do a really nice job of offsetting our own carbon usage from industry and just from breathing and many other things. And so it's wonderful when you can incorporate products that grow extremely fast, that are going to sequester a lot of carbon during their life cycle and really help our environment from that perspective. So extremely renewable, sucks in a bunch of carbon, very nice to work with, not going to scratch or itch or anything like that. Doesn't have an odor or smell or anything really to it. It doesn't mold, to the best of my knowledge. We've done some testing on it, and we also spoke extensively with Maddie about it, and it doesn't mold. I actually had a piece that was sitting in a shower pan that I was testing that, unbeknownst to me, had sat there for a couple of weeks while I was getting my floors done, and I didn't have my water test completed by the inspector. And so I pulled it out of there. And sure enough, there's no mold whatsoever on that. So that checked that box for me, that this is a very mold resistant product. Now you may ask, fire resistance, right? Like, what's the deal with that? It's hemp, you hear all the jokes about, oh, smoke, blah, blah, blah. So you think, is it gonna burn easily? And that was my question to Matty Mead when I first engaged in using this product. And he said, well, Doug, we actually have a good methodology to mitigate any sort of fire, and it's not a spray-on fire retardant or anything like that that's going to bring a lot of chemicals into our situation. And I said, well, what is it? How are you minimizing the spread of fire? He said, number one, it doesn't really want to just flame up and light up, and it would be kind of fun to light it on fire here. So I'm gonna leave that to your imagination this time. But it would be fun to kind of check it out. But the point being is it has a binder, right? So almost all these insulations have a binder. And some of them used formaldehyde in the past. And one of the cool things with this is there's no formaldehyde or anything like that. So that's great. So the binder in this one, even though you can't see it, is actually recycled plastic, believe it or not. So the recycled plastic is incorporated with the processing of this hemp, basically to hold it in these forms. It's very minimal. And I did tell Maddie I'm not a real big I'm a real big fan, excuse me, of a bunch of plastic all over the place either. And he agreed with that, and he said, you know, hey, we got to get this product out and let it do its thing. And with time, they would like to even work the plastic out of it. But there is a very small amount of recycled plastic in here, and that is what is aiding in preventing it from being something that could spread fire. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to cover a very large amount of surface area on any house, and that's why I'm so mindful of my insulation selections, because that's one opportunity where you can literally touch almost every surface area, square foot of that home with one type of product. And it could be foam, could be rock wool, it could be wool. In this case, I'm going with hemp bat insulation. Thank y'all for tuning in. Adios amigos.